How many of you know what it's like to have to do something? You have to pay taxes, right? The mindset of a watchman cannot be a have-to mindset. The mindset of a watchman has got to be a get-to mindset, where you consider it your privilege that you get to serve as a watchman in this generation. You get to be a watchman over your family. You get to be a watchman over your business. You get to be a watchman over the things that you love and the things that you want to protect. Because with watchmen, if they have a have-to attitude on days when it's 105 in the middle of the summer and they're looking out over the sands of the desert, they might stare more at those sitting in the shade and wonder why they can't sit down like those, instead of saying, I get to serve and no one will be harmed, not on my watch. Or if they're standing in the dead of winter and it's the cold air that's blowing and they're shivering cold while others are sleeping next to the warm fire in their house, a watchman has to say, I get to serve while others are sleeping in peace. We have to have a mindset that recognizes the role and responsibility that God has given us to play is too important for us to forfeit who we are and not do what God has required us to do. So the question is, where do you look in a day of trouble? When you read Psalms 121, there are two different speakers in the psalm. It's the same person, but he's got two different mindsets as the psalm progresses. Have you ever started a conversation with yourself and then in the midst of the conversation you were having with yourself became a different person while you were talking? Believe me, it's normal. The first person asks a question. The second person declares a truth. The first person wants to know, where is my help coming from? The second person knows exactly who to turn to in a day of trouble. It's the same person. The difference is not who the individual is. The difference is he was reminded of something whenever he realized that troubled times had come. You see, King Hezekiah in Jerusalem was living in troubled times. King Hezekiah had been a good king. When he came to power, he tore down all of the pagan altars to the false gods that the children of Israel were worshiping. He reinstated the Sabbath. He reinstated the reading of the Torah and the Word of God. You would have thought for all of his good deeds, God would have given him a little bit of time off. Have you ever thought that the things you did here on earth bought you good graces up in heaven? I mean, I've been so good for the last 6 months, God's going to give me the next 30 days free. That's not how it works. Hezekiah has ruled and been a righteous king, and he hears that the Assyrian army under the leadership of Sennacherib is coming to siege Jerusalem. 180,000 warriors have been walking across the known world, spreading like a virus. Paints a different picture today, don't it? They've murdered tens of thousands of people. They've tortured hundreds of thousands of people. They've burned and pillaged and sieged cities, and they're coming for Jerusalem. Every child in Jerusalem is stricken with fear when they hear the word Sennacherib spoken, because they know that it means the most vicious and violent destruction that you could ask or think. But rather than peace and prosperity, Hezekiah says, shall I look to the hills? Can I look to the mountains where I played as a child? Can I look to the hills that surround the city of Jerusalem? Can I look to the things of this earth and find anything that will help me? And he couldn't, because the places that he was familiar with in his childhood are now covered with 180,000 men of war who want him dead. It's a very literal question, because the city of Jerusalem sits at 2,550 feet above sea level. Just a few miles below it is the Dead Sea, 3,800 feet below sea level. A significant transition in the topography there, and right in the middle of the mountain range is Jerusalem.